Step one in building your desk is the design of it. So there's a couple of different ways you can do that. The first one is just to think about it. I spent a lot of time thinking about this desk before I made any decisions to actually build it. Another thing you can do is actually just draw it. So a simple way to do it is if you have a whiteboard, you could draw it out there. If you have paper, it's another super simple thing. Just get paper, pens, pencils, and draw it out. If you're a little bit more advanced, you can open a CAD software and actually put in dimensions and CAD everything. We can see down below, I have everything that I made down here. Now, this is not perfect and it could be done a little bit better. This CAD is not the best, but it serves its purpose. This looks like the exact desk frame. You'll notice that later in the video. The legs, this parts can move up and down for the motors. We have the motors, we can see the entire undercarriage of the desk right here. The motors right here, we have the bar that connects them. We even have the support bars on the side here. This is the desk we're going to use. I'll have that in the description below the like button. We'll go more into detail with that later, the cost of everything and the design. But this is my desk. This is not the desk that we are going to currently be building in this video. It's going to be a little bit more basic. It's not going to have these pull-out drawers. It's not going to have monitor, speaker, or computer in it. It's just going to be the desktop, the second layer, and the frame. So this is a very generic kind of tutorial, and you can take this and add on whatever you like in the future. The desk frame that we ended up going with was this Topsky dual motor. It's got a lot of good ratings. I have this on my desk, and it's on the other desk as well that we're building. So it's this $259.99. There's this black one, and then there's also this white one. They used to have a pink one, but now it's just black and white. We both have black, but this white one does look pretty sick, and might try it on the next one if we do it again. So there's a lot of instructions and just information about it in here. You have the adjustable width, the weight capacity. The weight capacity is important. So if you only plan on putting 225 pounds here, like the desk we are putting currently, well, this will be fine. I should have probably gotten, I don't know if they had this at the time, but it's this 300-pound load capacity. So 300 pounds is a lot more than 225 pounds, and this probably would have been a little bit better for me with all of my monitors and everything. Now, it's an easy upgrade, kind of. You just switch out the tabletops, but this should be good for most people. The difference, this is $259, and this one is $329. So it's like a $70 difference. This one also has a black and a white version. The price does not change based on the color, but again, this is the one that we're going to go with today, and this one is $260. Both of these will be in the description below the like button. On screen will be a picture of the receipt that we got. So the first thing that we got, 7.88, forget exactly what that's for, but we did need some wood screws. Now these wood screws were actually a little bit too short, so we got number 8 by 1. We're gonna want to do, I forget exactly what it is, but you're gonna want some longer wood screws. Now, they don't have to be specifically wood screws. Any screws will work. With my personal desk, I think I use like drywall screws. It does not matter too much. You just need to make sure they're long enough to go through the wood, which is about 1 inch. And then after that, it needs to go into the pillar that's holding up the second story. We have these pillars right here. It's going to drill into it, and then from the bottom, it's going to drill up and then hold it in place. So that's going to be what holds the second story. Now, this is when I was building my desk, not the desk that we are currently building here. So this is just an example. It needs to go through the 1 inch wood, and then however you feel comfortable into the wood pillar. I would say at least 1 inch, 2 inches preferred. So you're going to want a screw that's at least 3 inches long. The 7.98 was the dowel, which is 48 inches. Now the dowel, which is 48 inches, are the beams or the rods I just showed that are on the first story that go up and hold the second story. So we're going to screw in the first story to those, and then screw in from the bottom to hold those in together. We want a 48-inch one because the second story, a good height for it, you can make it however high as you want. This is adjustable, but we are going to make it 6 inches high. So 6 inches high, we are going to have 8 posts, 4 in the front and 4 in the back. Now, that means the back is going to be open. If you wanted to, you could also use a piece of wood, like a 2x4, and put it back there. Something really thin. You want to make it really thin and pretty light to give it a back plate. Or you could just like 3D print a back plate, or use something else so that nothing falls back there. But 6 inches gives you enough clearance for you to fully see under the desk. I made a mistake and only did 4 inches for my personal desk, but we're doing 6 inches here for the rods. We'll go over this when we actually do the build. The next, again, is the screws. We just talked about that. You're going to want to get screws at least enough to drill into the desk. So if we are doing 8 rods, we're going to have 8 screws on top, 8 screws on the bottom. You're going to want to get at least like a 20 pack of screws. Then we have our wood stain and polyethylene. Now, getting these together is great because that means you don't have to spray it afterwards to protect the wood. It's already in there. Bare is really nice. We got the espresso color. It's about $17. And then the biggest cost, okay, this is the wood. Now, you could probably omit the paint, which is $17. You could save the paint if you just got like a tabletop. But you might not have a second story unless you went out and bought a piece of wood by yourself. But Home Depot sells them at 3/4 of an inch by 48 inches by 96 inches. So it's a big sheet for like $80. And we're getting this huge sheet, and from this huge sheet you can cut the tabletop first layer, the second layer, and then you're going to have a lot of wood left over as well. So that's pretty good there. This is all we got, total to be about $132, so that's with tax. I'm calculating that as 130 because tax difference everywhere, and it can go up or down. So anyways, we got the wood, we got our posts, and now we are carrying it back to the car. So the first step is going to bring the wood out of the car. So we carried it over, put it on a flat surface. We had to do it on a driveway. This was definitely suboptimal. You're going to want to do it on a completely flat surface. There just was not a lot of working room, so we made the best that, we could do. We put a sheet underneath it because this is stain, it's wood stain, and whatever it gets on, it's going to stay on there. So you're going to want it to be very, very careful. Now, laying the wood down flat, nice surface, we're going to sand it really well. You want to sand it using the correct grit. Any grit really should be fine. We use the incorrect one. I think we use like maybe 100, 200. I think the can of paint that we have said to use around 400 grit. So you're going to want to follow that if you can. So once you sand it down, make sure you sand the edges so nothing is really rough. But if you don't sand the edges completely, it's okay because we'll go over that in the touch-up step. But you're going to want to sand the entire top side of either of the boards. We started with the smaller board first, so we sanded that down and then we stained it. Then we put it on the grass. Now, this was a pretty big mistake because it warped on the grass. We put it in the sun so it would dry faster, which it did. But if you put it in the sun and on the grass, I guess the paint and everything, it's going to warp the board a little bit. If your board warps, this is not a huge issue. When we screw everything together, the warping, well, it'll fix, it'll be okay. You just don't want to leave it there too long. You put it in the sun, it's going to dry pretty fast. Again, it's going to dry fast, so you're going to just want to be aware of that. Now, after that is in the sun, you've sanded it, you've stained it, you've put it aside, you're going to repeat for the next board. So you're going to sand it, of course wipe it down with kind of a damp towel to get all the little sanded pieces off so there's nothing in the stain. Then you're going to want to stain the wood. Now, staining it is basically just like brushing the wood. You want to push that stain into the wood. You're not painting it, you're staining it. So staining is where you're actually just putting the stain, kind of just soaking it into the wood. You want the wood to absorb the stain. And you're just going to repeat that. Once you're done with the next piece, you're going to put that in the sun, you're going to bring the other piece out, flip it over, and you're going to want to sand it. Then you stain that piece. Once you're done with that, you're going to repeat, put that in the sun, take the other one, flip it over, sand it, and stain that. Now, when you do the edges, after the front and the back is dry, you can tilt it on its side, have one person hold it, and then go around and sand the edges. Now, I used a tool to do this, like an electric one. Preferably, when you do the edges and everything, it would be easier and best if you use like a sanding block or sandpaper to easily go around and do that. Then you're just going to want to go around and stain that. Now, this is by no means an official paint guide. I barely know how to stain, and I keep saying paint when I actually mean stain. So we're staining, not painting, just to make that clear. But we're not like the people who only paint the front side of the cabinet and not the back. We're computer engineering. We're computer engineers. We're STEM majors. So we're not half anything. We are full. We're full in. So when you do the bottom, what we're going to do is just do one layer on the bottom. When you flip it over and you do the top, you can do a layer of stain. Look at it. If you like that one layer, that's fine. Just use that one layer. Now, if you're doing more than one layers, an important part, which will make it look a lot nicer when you're done, is to sand between layers. So once you do your first layer, you let it dry. Once it's dry, you're going to want to sand that. There's two things that are going to happen. You're going to allow the next layer of stain to soak more into the wood, and you'll also clear any like imperfections. Now, this isn't going to clear all imperfections, but it'll clear some. So that is something really cool that you can do. Again, in between layers, and then we are going to just be fine. Just look at it every single time that each layer is done. Now we're going to cover the columns and then drilling holes. The reason why we're covering holes is because it's important to do this before you go inside and you put everything together. You want to have this kind of thought out. This is part of step one, which is the design process. Now, we messed up, and again, the second story for our desk, hopefully you design it a little bit better, the second story was a little bit too big, and our actual desk portion was too small. So we had to use some wood putty, which we're going to do, and fill in the holes, and we're going to push the second layer back so that there's an overhang off the back, but we'll demonstrate that in a little bit. So anyways, we are going to grab our long cylindrical wood. There's square ones too you can get at Home Depot, but get either of those and you're just going to cut them. We have a tabletop saw here, cutting it every 6 inches. So we are going to get 8 of those. Good thing we got a 48-inch one. So we're going to cut that. We're going to stain it. You should sand it. You can use like a sanding block or like a sandpaper, wrap it around and sand it would be really nice. And then stain it so you get that wood in there. We didn't sand it, so it doesn't look very smooth, but it does look interesting. So stay tuned to see how that looks. It looks pretty cool. But after we do that, then we're going to drill holes. So what you're going to want to do, assuming your dimensions are right, this is an 80-inch desk. We should have done 35 inches for the tabletop, I believe. We only did 30. That 5 inches makes a huge difference because really it's 10 inches, right? You get 5 more inches of the tabletop, you get 5 inches off the second story. So anyways, you're going to want to line these two up. We didn't have clamps. You should use clamps though, because it'll give you like a better measurement of everything. So you can use clamps the first and the second layer together. You're going to drill holes all the way through. Make sure they're a little bit thinner than your screw. You want to clear out any of that wood, and this will mark where you're going to put your pillars later. So once that's done, we can now go inside. On to the next step. So we're going to be building the desk frame, and this is actually really easy if we're getting the one that we got. So everything's very nicely laid out, very nicely packaged from the Topsky. We're just going to be unloading everything onto the floor first, and then we are going to put the middle piece together. Now, it's 3 pieces. There's going to be a thin piece that goes in between 2 larger pieces. There's going to be a plastic bracket on the 2 larger pieces. That's where the middle piece slides into. And then you're going to have 8 screws. You don't want to screw it in all the way. See, these screws are only meant to hold that middle part in place. It's not meant to actually screw through it. So you just want to screw it in to hold it in place. Once it's in place, we can start the next part. And by the way, it doesn't really say this in the instruction manual, at least from what I was reading from my instruction manual when I built the desk, because I didn't really read this one. But this middle bar, you can extend it. So it slides around until you put the screws in. And you're going to want to extend it as far out as possible if you're building a big desk, which is recommended. So you're going to want to pull it out as far as possible, but still have enough room so that those screws can go in and hold the middle part. I would say give it at least an inch-ish on each side. We can get the motors. So we're going to want to align the motors. There are these plastic circular pieces that go in there, and then they are just going to have screws that go through there and then into the motors. So those screw in and they hold everything together. Now after this, there's these side brackets. So these are on the side of the motors. These are just 2 screws. They go in there super easily. And then after that is where we have the feet. So then we screw in the feet and then we're done. So after the feet, we have a control panel. So let's test out the control panel before we put everything else together, because what if we get like a lemon or something, right? So we're plugging everything in and we're gonna test to see if it goes up and down. And it goes up and it works. So now we are gonna disassemble that part, just the electronics part, and now we can put the desktop on the desk frame. Bringing the desk frame into the room is something we should have done before we actually put the desk frame on here, so make sure you do that. It'll make everything so much easier, save so much space. Once you do that, it's all about alignment now. So you're going to want to take a tape measure. You can measure the distance in between them. You're going to want to mark the middle somewhere on the frame. So basically put a mark on the middle of the frame, then you're going to want to measure the desk, or the desktop. Mark the middle of the desktop, and you're going to want to try to align that the best you can. That way you can get a good accurate measurement of the middle. Now from here, you can also measure the sides, which I don't think we did, but is something I just thought of now and would have been great. So measure from the, if we look at just the screen here, the right side of the desktop to the actual metal part. And we could do that on both sides and kind of narrow it in. We got just perfectly in the middle the way we did it. So that works as well. Now, when you do this, you're going to see us correct this later, but you're going to want to make sure that the desk frame is a little bit towards the back, because this desk, since it has a second story and you're going to put stuff in the second story on top of the second story, well, that means it's going to be extremely back heavy. So you're going to want to put the actual desk frame a little bit towards the back so it can actually compensate this more and evenly distribute the weight. That's really important. What I'm doing in here though is just tightening everything. Again, probably should not have tightened everything right now, because we should have seen at first how back heavy this was going to be. But you don't have to move it forward too much. I only think we did a few inches, maybe just like 2 inches. Now what we're going to do is we're going to install the actual pillars. Now our top part is a little bit too big. I believe I said the bottom sheet of wood should be cut at 35 inches. So you're going to want 35 inches, and you can see me debating up here, what should we do? Because the actual desk usable space is really small. Because we didn't do it 35 inches, we did it like 30 inches. So do it like 33, 35 inches. We continue going on because my friend said it'd be okay, but it was not okay. It was extremely small, and I was just not having it. So what we're going to end up doing is covering the holes. If you make mistakes, it's okay. You can use wood putty to just cover up the holes, and then after you cover up the holes, all you're going to need to do is put some stain over it so it'll be okay. You can see us really trying out the desk. We're going to be able to shift this around. Now, I didn't screw the columns in all the way to both sides. The front columns are screwed into the top. The ones in the back are screwed into the base, so that we can easily push this forward and backwards. You can see me pulling it forward and backwards so that we can kind of gauge where we want to exactly put this. We're going to screw it in, but this means that our holes from earlier, we're not going to use 8 out of the 16 because we have to push it back. So that means we're just going to cover them up with wood putty. But that's okay, it's no big deal. We're just going to want to realign this. You can see I'm doing it with a book, making sure it's perfect. And then if you have clamps, you could clamp it together, that'd be great. But what I did was just have the book and have my friend hold the top part, and then we're going to be screwing everything in. Once you put a few screws in, it's going to hold it pretty well, and then you can just go in and screw everything in. Now, it's going to be a little bit hard if you mess up like this when you get to the middle and accurately screw this in. I made one mistake hole where I drilled in and I missed the pillar. But it's okay. You can, again, do it with wood putty. Just try not to. You can use your measuring tape to try to line up as best as you can. Take your time. Measure twice and drill once. So we've done a lot, and now it's time to admire our work. This is the bottom side, so the paint doesn't look great, but the top side, it looks amazing. It's got a lot of texture, it's got a lot of depth, it's got a lot. Now, these are just some after pictures with a lot of stuff on it. It's not done yet. We still need to do the electronics and touch up. So the important part is this step is to admire our work. When admiring our work, you're going to find some imperfections. This can be like rough edges, This could be anything that we want to change, add, if we have any ideas that we can do. So you just gonna want to note those down, then you can always come back to them later. You want to eat and drink water during this, especially when you're working outside, because this is pretty labor intensive and you're going to be quite exhausted afterwards. Just note to future Brandon, if you're doing this desk again, you were tired. Next up. Okay, so this is not actually a horrible step. It's actually really easy. There's 8 screws on the bottom of the desk that you're going to want to unscrew, 4 in the middle, 2 on each side, and then once you do that, you can take a Sharpie, and since the bars going across the desk are horizontal, you can just draw some lines in the middle part, and then move it up. That was the perfect amount for us to actually have the weight more centered. And then once you do that, you're just going to pre-drill holes in each of the holes, and then screw the screws in. You're going to want to have someone stand on the desk just to make sure that the screw goes all the way through the metal part and then into the wood. So you want to make sure that goes in flawlessly to hold it extremely well. That's really important. But once you do that, you're all done. I started from the middle and then worked my way to the edges. That's all it is really, just re-screwing it in. And so that was pretty simple. This is arguably the most fun part. Up until this point, it's very kind of procedural, what we need to do, but now is where the lights and mounting everything comes in. So we did a very basic electronic setup here, at least I did, but my friend will add on to it in the future, and that's the best thing about this. We got a 24 outlet surge protector, which is in the description below the like button. It fits perfectly with this desk, so if you make anything smaller, I think 70 inches it'll be fine also, but you're going to want to check the length of it. They have 24 outlets, 16 outlets, and then I think 12 outlets. My friend wanted to get 16, but the price difference between 16 and 24 outlets was only $5. So just for future, we got 24 outlets. That's the one I have on my desk right now, and I would totally get that one again. There's 4 if we get this specific one, which is in the description below the like button. There are 3 mounting points on each side, but we only use 2 screws, so 4 total holding up the power strip. Now our second story has a little bit of an overhang, which is nice because my friend is able to mount this underneath the second story. This means that they'll be able to just reach under the second story and plug in power. For my desk, which I'll be doing soon, the power strip is underneath the entire desk. So if I ever want to plug something in, I have to go under the desk, which if it's not raised is pretty hard. So I installed another power part for the desk that's right next to where I sit. I really like this a lot, but it is quite expensive and is another cost on this desk. So we're going to keep that out. And if you want to, you can just mount this underneath the second story. There's 2 ways you could do this. You could do this like how we did it, which is since we have the overhang, we mounted it, or since there's 6 inches of space, what you could do is you could mount it inside of the pillars if there is no overhang. So there's 2 ways you could do it. You will be giving up a little bit of space, and it might be a little bit hard to hide cables well, though my friend didn't mind. They said they liked the aesthetic of the cables, and I kind of agree. I like nicely routed looking cables. Looks really good. So once that was all set, once that was in, we could install the actual command center for this desk, which is just the control panel for it. You can get an extension cord. I'll have that in the description below, like button as well. And I prefer to mount it on the second story right in front of me. That way I can easily reach it, but they wanted it off to the side, so we did it to the side. So you could really do it wherever you want. It's a little bit limiting because the desk only comes, unfortunately, with 1 extension part. So you could get another one and you could make it just go wherever. That will add some cost on, but it's not too expensive and it gives it a little more flexibility, which I like. Now we're going to also add lights. You can add LED lights to the first and second story. I'd recommend smart lights. They're expensive, or you can just get app controlled ones. What I have on my desk is I have lights connected to a smart switch. I leave it a specific color and I can turn it on and off whenever I want to. They like the orange, so they're going to have orange that goes all around the underneath part and then all around the top part. It's going to be a little bit hard to explain, but basically we made the power supply for the power strips be in the middle towards the back of the desk. Once that's done, it went along the right side and then up the front, and then to the left, and then around the back, and then it snaked up to the second story. The way we hid the wire for the second story is we put it behind a pillar, and then we were able to go up the second story. We did this just with one, I think 32-inch one, but we had a pack of 64 inches. So if we wanted to, we could add another one. I wanted to, they didn't. So that's totally fine as well. So this is where you can really just customize the lights. I recommend you leave some gap between the actual edge of the desk and the light. That way, if you ever want to mount anything like a headphone holder or anything in the future, you can do that. Now, the desk is going to have a problem with things sticking to it because of the polyethylene. So you could try to sand this off. You could try hot gluing it on, or if you have a 3D printer, which I do, you can kind of CAD something that holds the power supplies to the bottom of the desk and then screw that in. Or you could get like a cable management tray. I'll have like a really basic one in the description below the like button that you can use to put wires or other cables underneath your desk, and it just screws in there. So that's really it for the basic electronics part. You can mount everything and then plug everything in. So, finished it. Now, this is not the best color for this desk whatsoever. White LEDs would probably be best. I mean, this is a very beautiful espresso that we have. Espresso tabletop. You know, we have the electronics right here. Bringing it down. Oh yeah. Look at that. So we have a nice espresso tabletop. I'm thinking a nice white, maybe a kind of Arctic blue would go good with this color. So that's pretty sweet. The tabletop, sanded the edges. We're gonna restain these. I'm not gonna do that though. There is some wood putty and some touch-up that I decided will not be done, but that is something that should be done. So there's that, sanding all around the edges. We have the hardware right here, just showing. You could cover this up, paint it, do whatever you want. You can put some screw caps on it, but for us, the kind of gold screws look really nice with this espresso tabletop. Because we sanded in between every layer, it looks very, very nice. Not only does it look nice, it feels very nice. Come here. Look at just the layers of this. You can see that beautiful wood grain. You can see the difference of the colors. It's perfect because it's not perfect, and that's why it's perfect. So this is pretty amazing. You know, back up. You can see how nice this is. The lights, underglow. It's under the entire first story. No halving anything. It's all around the entire desk. So if this was in the middle of the room, you would have glow. The entire under the desk. This entire desk underneath is glowing. You bring your chair here, you sit here, your legs are going to be glowing. You're like an alien. You want to see what's under your second story? That's no problem. You just grab whatever. Now let's demonstrate the difference between the lights on and lights off. We have a controller for this, but I'm going to use the actual manual one right here and not the phone or remote app. So this is it without the lights. Dark. Not great. Honestly, is this even a desk? I don't know. But with the lights on, man, it looks so much better. I'm going to try to change the mode here. Look at that. This is the beautiful, beautiful, more sophisticated white for it. I think it looks very nice. Around the back, we have a power strip. Now, this power strip's so long, you have options. For my desk, I have a power strip that goes under the first layer in the back. Of course, in the back. You don't have it in front. You just don't. So, this desk is a little bit different, right? I planned this desk to be the best, right? Now, the best way we can do this is have this entire front part clean, just wood. In my desk, there's a part that raises up. It's pretty cool, don't get me wrong, but it can be a little in the way at times. So, what we did is we mounted the power strip along this entire back part right here. That means all you have to do to plug something in is kind of just take whatever you want, reach back here, and plug it in. The power strip goes all the way from this side of the desk to the end over there. So you could plug in anything wherever you want. Plug in anything over here. Plug in anything over here. On this side, middle, this side. You can host 3 people at this desk, and everyone will have power. We put the control panel for the desk right here, in case we do host more people. You know, everyone can access it. Very beautiful, very nice. That's it for the desk. the first thing that we're going to talk about is why we should build our own desk. And this has to do with price. If we look at another really big, really cool actually standing desk, this is actually pretty cool. I really like this. However, it's $1,400, say $300 for this. And it's only 60 inches wide. So we are getting kind of less, more in some ways, but overall less desk space. And unfortunately, the price is so high, so this is going to be out. But this is just one comparison. Let's look at another one. There's this other one here for a pretty reasonably comparative price, right? You have $560. It is normally $630 though, so that's something to keep in mind. Remember, our desk currently is about $500, so it's even less than this. It's going to be longer than this as well, and it has 2 stories. So overall, our desk is just more than this. Next, we have this desk right here, and it seems pretty big, right? 72 inches by 30 inches. That's pretty big, right? Minus the second story, but maybe you could attach that on afterwards. Well, there's a few things I noticed about this. One, doesn't look like wood. Looks kind of plasticky, the table, and it's 3 individual pieces, so that's just something to note. But it looks a little bit plasticky, so I don't know how attaching more things onto it is going to go for the future. It does have collision detection sensors, which is pretty cool. However, it only holds 160 pounds of weight, whereas ours can hold about 225 pounds. And what's very, very problematic is the fact that we have a single motor. There's only one motor, while our desk is dual motor, and this is $429, so it's almost $450. It's almost the price of our desk, so we're completely gonna ignore that. Now there's this L-shaped one, which is just a little bit more expensive at $600, whereas ours is around $500. But I plan on doing an L-shaped desk build soon, and hopefully that one will be costing less than this and be even bigger. If we were to scale it down, I would love to make one that is the same or similar price as this one. So we'll come back to this one hopefully in another video. There's this one right here for $400, but it's only 63 inches. It comes in 4 parts, but other than that, everything else looks good. However, it is 17 inches less. It does cost less though, about $100 less, but for $100, I think building a really big one is great. You can see a common theme about these is that none of them are 80 inches. So none of them are as big as we really want it to be. We don't have all the space for expansion and for working across it. We have multiple monitors and everything. This one's pretty cool. It's 72 by 30 inches. Unfortunately, it's only 1 story. It does look like it's actual wood. The only problem here is though, again, it's only 1 story. It's only 72 inches. And it costs $900, which is about $400 more than what we currently have. And unfortunately, it is not as big, or my opinion, as good. So we're gonna take that one out. And then there's a smaller one for about the same price as ours, but again, it's smaller. So that's another problem with here. It's smaller, it's not gonna be as good as ours. So just showing that doing it DIY is a whole lot better. Next, we are going to look at the desktop. So the desktop, we got all of our stuff. If you look at the total with tax and everything, it's about 100, we'll say 140. The desk is around 260, so we'll round that to 300 plus 140, it's about $500. So we'll just say with tax and everything, it's about $500 for our desk, which is still great, still amazing. It's less than $600 so far, but we're gonna get it less than 100. How are we gonna get less than 100? We have to take $500 off. Now, this might not be applicable for all situations, but this is how we did it. So the desktop, what you could do if you wanted to, you didn't have to stain it. You could just sand it and use just like a plain like wooden tabletop. That'll save you like $20. The screws, you can get cheaper screws. Doesn't really matter what screws you get, to be honest. As long as they're screws, it's gonna hold it in just the same. You'll probably get it for a little bit less expensive than that. So it'll probably still be a little bit over $100 for Home Depot, depending on also what the wood you get. The wood's important. The birch or oak or red oak is pretty good. I have red oak on mine, my friend has birch on theirs, and it seems solid, both of them. So this is about, we said 140, the desk is about 260, tax is like 500. Now the electronics are another like $50, but none of that is included in the other desk, so we'll say like 550 for everything that I've shown so far. Now how do we get it less than 550? Well, first off is that Amazon, when it was during Prime Week, they had a promotion where if you open a store card, which is very, very easy, you get $150 gift card, Amazon gift card. So that cuts the price of the desk in half. You're gonna go from $260 to $110. So you only have to pay $110 for the desk. Now, that's still $110 though, so how did we get it less than that for the desk frame? Because we got the desk frame for free, actually. And this is because it got damaged in shipping, sent back to Amazon. I don't think this is Amazon's policy, but they sent out a replacement, which is Amazon's policy, but they also gave us a full refund for it. So we didn't have to pay anything for the desk at all, and we still got the $150 gift card, which is how we got the electronics for free, because we used the gift card for that. Now, there is still the price of Home Depot, right? Home Depot was $140 almost, right? Well, how do we get that discount? You could get even bigger discount than the $45 we got. You can get $100 base, just standard. You can get $100 off for free if you open a Discover credit card. It's super simple, and there's a link that you have to use, or you have to use someone's link to open it, and you get $100 statement credit, which you can apply to gift cards. And the gift card is like if you spend $40 of cash back for a gift card, you get $45 gift card. So if you spend like $100, you probably get like $110. And so that will cut the price in half. And for the first year, they match you 10%. So it's super easy to just get enough cash back to totally cover the entire purchase of everything at Home Depot. And if you're not lucky enough to get your desk frame damaged in shipping, you can even apply that cash back to Amazon and actually get the entire desk for free. So it's a little complicated, but again, you can get the $150 off during, I don't know if it's just during Prime Week, but it was during Prime Week when we got it, $150 off the desk frame. So that brings it down to about $110, we'll just say, for the desk frame. You can use the Discover card that I have in the description below the like button to get $100 off the Home Depot, or really just $100 statement credit that you can place wherever. I say Home Depot though because you can get e-certificates, which are worth more. So you get that, you get the 10% cash back on top of that, and you can bring the price of the desk down to almost nothing. It's really a no-brainer to do this. You can get it for free. The only thing that really costs is labor. But if you know a cool computer engineer, they'll do it for free. Now, there is a kind of prerequisites of having just some screwdrivers and a drill with a full set of drill bits. Those will try to be in the description below the like button, but most people have that. So it's not that big of a deal. Free desk.